make for the very first time. So you'll see how a new recipe for me comes out. And we're gonna make Vietnamese pho, which is a beef noodle soup that is very common and extremely popular, especially in little Vietnamese communities here in the United States. I love it. I've never made it, and I'm going to show you how to make it the same way I'm going to learn how to make it. So here are the ingredients and the things you'll need to make sure you have at home. I have lots of these things at home in my pantry because I've been experimenting with making laksa and other Asian type noodle soups. So I have most of these things, but if you don't, it's usually stuff that's easy to find, Stop and Shop, even Walmart. Here's what you'll need. You'll need vermicelli. This is the kind that I buy. I get it off Amazon, but any rice vermicelli that you can buy anywhere, you can use for this soup. Onions. I have a little spice bag, and I'll show you what that's for later when we're working on the broth. I have a can of bamboo shoots, but I'm sending my husband out, so maybe he can find me some fresh ones before we serve it and eat it. Some bay leaves, and here's the Asian things. You'll need hoisin sauce, fish sauce. You will need palm sugar or rock sugar if you have it around. Limes, some salt, some sriracha, but I'm sure if you have any other kind of hot sauce at home, whether it's Frank's Red Hot or even a Portuguese piri piri, it will work. You'll need some beef bones. These happen to be bones with marrow. You can use beef shank or any beef on bone that you would like to use to make your your broth. You will also need a few greens. You'll need some cilantro, scallion, and some basil. And I think that's about it outside of the water and outside of a few other little things that we use as adornments at the end when we garnish our plates. But so you can see, this is pretty much all you'll need. The way we're going to do this is I'm going to start prepping the vegetables, because the vegetables, one thing I forgot to mention because he's going to go out and grab it now. You do need some ginger root. So ginger root and onions, I will cut those and I will roast those while I get ready and start working on the broth. Catch you in a bit. Okay, so I'm back, and what I've done in the meantime is I have taken a few onions, peeled them, cut them in half, and put them on a cookie sheet. And I'm going to roast these for about 20 minutes, and I'll flip them after about 10. Ordinarily, if I had my ginger root, I would chop it into chunks and also roast it. I'm going to add those later after Duane brings it home, and then roast them separately. But I'm going to put the onions in now so I can start the stock. Okay, so I have my onions in the oven here. I'm going to roast them at 350. I put it in a little before, and I want to turn them after about 20 minutes. Usually, as I said, I would chop the ginger in rough chunks, put it in there, skin and all, and roast along with the onions. But I'm going to have to do that separately because I don't have the ginger at home yet. Next up is you put your beef bone, and here I have beef marrow, beef shank. I think you can use oxtails. In fact, I think the traditional way of doing this is to use oxtails. Couldn't find any oxtails at Walmart, couldn't find any at Stop and Shop. I hear they're hard to get. I grew up eating them. So I put just enough water over the beef marrow and bone and shank, and it's covering the top. And I'm bringing that to a boil. After that, we're going to clean that out and we're going to start our stock. So the oven's beeping, time to turn my onions. See, the onion goodness. And yeah, I don't want to get these too dark. You know, the Vietnamese pho broth is actually supposed to be quite light. Oh, these are a little bit sticky. It's supposed to be a light colored broth. It's supposed to be pretty clear, unlike beefy broths in most recipes. So like I said, first time I've ever even attempted, but yeah, I'm flipping these. They're roasting nicely. They smell great. I love onions. Okay, and we'll leave those in here for another 10 minutes. Set my timer here. And see the bones and the water covering them coming to a boil. You can see all that scummy gelatinous stuff. We're actually going to take all of that out. We're going to strain the bones and this broth. We don't actually use this in the stock. We start with nice clean water and all of the fragrant herbs and all of the other spices once these are boiled. Back in a flash. Right, so this just came up to a boil, and you can see all of the scummy meat stuff at the top. I'm actually going to strain this now in the sink and get rid of all that, and then put the bones and the meat back into the pot after I rinse it out with clean fresh water. So I'm here at the sink, and this is my pot of soup with the bones and the beef in it, and I am going to pour this out into a colander so that I can strain all of that gelatinous stuff. It's almost like a scum that's going to the top. And I'm left with, as you can see, just the bones and the meat. And this isn't the only meat we're going to use when we eat this, so this is just what I'm using to make the broth. Actually, well, it was pretty good. Not too much there that I have to work on. So I will now add about, I guess the recipe calls for about 2 gallons. This is a 2-gallon stock pot. I'm probably going to use about 1.75 gallons of water in with the beef now, and then put it back on the stove. So I've got the bones back in with about 1 3/4 gallon of fresh cold water. The recipe is about 2, but I don't know. I just want to say, first time I'm making it, and I'm going through all this trouble to make this stock. I'm sure, or I hope, it'll pan off, but I'm thinking, why not use the bone broth that you can buy in the store? And or why not use a nice beef stock or beef broth? I suppose you can. Maybe that will be something I try next time. We'll have to see if the time and the effort is worth the flavor. So we'll see soon. Okay, my 20 minutes of oven roasted onions are out, and I have placed the clean broth on a different burner because I only want this one to get put on simmer until it comes to a slow boil again. Once I do that, then I will start working on the herbs and spices, and hopefully soon I will be roasting the ginger root, and eventually we will be marrying all of these things together and starting that broth. Okay, so this is now at a rolling little simmer, and I am going to add the roasted onions to the pot. And Duane came back, and they didn't have fresh ginger at Walmart, go figure. So you see me just adding the onions to the simmering pot, and the bones and the stuff that I said before. Didn't have it, so he got something else. This is what he got. It is ginger paste. Listen, ginger is ginger, and at this point the paste is going into this broth. And I even have powdered ginger, so we'll just add a few dollops of the paste. You can't ruin anything with ginger, you'll only make it better, right? Okay, the other thing, for more meat, he did bring home some beef ribs, and I'm going to put it into that pot as well. So I'm adding 1 rack, it looks like 1 rack of beef ribs. You can see I'm letting it, I just cut them, and I'm putting it in there. This is a nice fatty meaty piece as well. And now I'm going to let that go for a little, and I'll be back to add some of the spices. Okay, back to finish off, and to the pot I'm going to add, these are massive, but these are bay leaves. And ordinarily I would use one of those little spice bags, but really the only thing I would put in the spice bag at this point is the bay leaf, because I don't have fennel seed or star anise, but I do have Chinese 5-spice, which has star anise, and a mix of fennel, also with some cinnamon, a little bit of sugar, and I think it has some ginger. I'll put 2 tablespoons of that. Actually put 1.5 tablespoons of that. Just, you know, you don't want to overdo it. Give it a stir. There's the roasted onions. My bay leaves are in there floating around. I now have the Chinese 5-spice. 2 tablespoons of, I'm adding palm sugar. Looks like that. Here comes Duane to take the camera.
Yeah, she was a little bit all over the place.
It's okay. This is palm sugar. It's actually coconut palm sugar. You can use rock sugar, palm sugar, or regular sugar, but this is what I had. Bought it for a different recipe. Next, you will add about a tablespoon of salt. I'm using coarse, and it doesn't seem like a lot of salt for a pot this big, but remember, you will be spicing your plate once you put the noodles on there. People usually dabble with sriracha, so a little bit of salt here. And next, I think this is probably the most important ingredient, and this is a 1/2 cup of fish sauce.
Because everyone's got fish sauce.
Yeah, and this one's got a tiny little seal on it, so, you know, getting a 1/2 cup out 1 drop at a time doesn't sound like fun to me.
Want a hand?
Yes, please.
Let's trade.
Let's trade. Let's watch Duane open the fish sauce.
It's not a scoop down. So, we'll use a fork.
Ever the inventor. Okay.
Grease the whole size.
Good, then I can pour it in and ruin other recipes.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's see how it's just. Are you trying to get it into this?
Yeah, 1/2 cup.
Do you want me to just cut that right off? That little.
Duane has successfully filled my little 1/2 cup measuring cup and 1/2 cup of fish sauce.
There you go.
And I think the last thing is just a few floating chili flakes. And I
Just
use
crushed
this.
red pepper.
Crushed red pepper is fine, but it is different than
That's a chili.
flakes.
Yep, okay.
So this will now simmer pot open, no cover, for 5 to 6 hours. So we'll see you back when it's time to eat.
Sounds good.
Okay, so this has been simmering now for about 5 or 6 hours. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to dig through the pot and fish out all the bones, and then put the bones onto this plate, and I'll just make sure to clean the bones of any meats or anything and put it back in the pot. But I'll take all the bones. That includes those tiny little round ones and the big huge beef rib bones. So I'm going to debone my soup. So as you can see, those are all the bones cleared off of all the meat, and what I have here is the beef rib and whatever meat was around those bones and marrow. I'm going to chop that back up and put it in here, and then we'll do a couple of seasoning taste tests before this is ready. Okay, so here's where we are. Simmering away for about 6 hours, bones removed, and the broth, it's supposed to be clear, but you know what? Smells awesome. I've tasted some of it. Tastes awesome. We'll give it a pass. And I have water in a pot here. When it's boiling, I will add the rice vermicelli, but you can use any type of vermicelli, pasta type base, but rice vermicelli is the usual base noodle for the Vietnamese pho. And we have chopped cilantro, a couple of limes, and we also have scallion and basil leaves. Those serve as garnishes. So what happens here is we cook the noodles, put the noodles in the bowl, and then we put in, or put on the noodles, all these fresh aromatics and herbs, and we place some very, very thinly sliced beef ribeye, not cooked. The hot broth will cook it, and then we pour the hot broth with the beef chunks and beef rib meat into a bowl. We'll show you in a minute, and I hope this tastes good. Keeping my fingers crossed. Oh, and by the way, you do add sriracha, some hoisin, and of course, because I'm me, Frank's Red Hot. Hey, it's finally time to eat the pho. That's been boiling away, simmering away for about 6 hours. So we have some vermicelli cooked noodles. Don't overcook it till they mush. A little bit of spring, a little bit of bite. I have one very thin slice of ribeye ready to go. You don't cook it because the hot broth you pour over.
It's basically
will
a
cook
shaved
that.
steak.
That's right. Here is the cilantro. I'm going to put cilantro. It's supposed to have cilantro. Of course, scallion and basil. Maybe a little more scallion. I love spring onion. And that's what it looks like. Hoisin sauce is another one of those things you kind of just add in advance. So I will put some hoisin sauce in. Sriracha is what people usually recommend, but I am a Frank's girl.
I'll be using sriracha, and I'll be using cloud mushrooms.
And I'm going to be adding a pile of Frank's Red Hot sauce. Now we'll go over to the stove where it is simmering, and we will add this delicious broth with any meat. Not the, well, if you like it, you can pretty much do what you like here. So I'm gonna pour this very hot broth right over the meat first though. Oh, it's already, look, it's already starting to cook the meat.
Yeah, change color right away.
Yeah, it changed color.
You get some
Oh, I
other
do
meat
like, you know
and
what, I do
stuff
like
in
onions though,
there.
I'm tempted. You can add, remember, we used a lot of meat and I cut up the meat and put the meat back in here. This is
Good.
very reminiscent of the way we learned to cook even Portuguese kale soup, where you took the hunks of meat and tendon. And I'm gonna look for some good hunks of meat in here. This has been simmering away. It's still simmering now.
Go with some there.
Beef rib. Let me find a piece. I see lots more onions than I do the meat, but the meat is in here. Let me find a piece of meat. I'm gonna dig. Okay, here's some meat.
There you go.
I'm gonna put a little bit more broth. Now, the piece de resistance that makes it pho usually is actually bean sprouts, but it is the lime. You pour the lime all over this. And because I like scallion so much, a little bit more scallion. And the noodles are underneath, just ready to erupt. Looks great.
Awesome.
Perfect. So Duane is making up his bowl. He cut his meat a little smaller. He put in the aromatics, the cilantro, the scallion, the basil, the meat, and he's added wood ear or cloud mushrooms. That's right. Now he is putting in his hoisin. Oh, okay, Mr. Hoisin. And he will add sriracha. Add the sriracha. That's a lot of sriracha. He likes things spicy. Now the hot broth from the pot that's been simmering.
I'm gonna just start right off the bat and try to find meat.
There is meat in there. There's rib meat.
I'm not even gonna,
What do you think?
I'm just gonna dig right down and look for the meat because I'll get the broth as I go. I don't
Great.
mind some onion.
Okay.
Yeah, I
There's a
know
lot of rib meat.
hiding in there.
There is.
It's just really hiding.
Do you like the onions too, hun? Because the onions are probably great too.
Yeah, I eat onions on just about
Constantly.
anything. Yeah.
And there's the hot broth cooking the meat.
And a few pieces of meat.
And
I
yep,
think I'm pretty good.
very, very good.
Now I'll add that lime, and I'm gonna call it there.
That's it. A little bit of lime.
This lime.
Use 2 halves because you have a big bowl.
Oh, yeah. I'm finishing off yours, plus I'm adding some more from this one.
All right.
Here we go.
We'll
I'm
taste
ready
it
to
and
go.
we'll taste it and come back. There is Duane's Vietnamese pho. Here is Nidia's already mixed with the noodles Vietnamese pho. What do you think? First time you've ever had pho?
I have taken a couple bites already.
And
And I do like it a lot. The lime is coming through a lot, but I put a bunch of cilantro. It's really coming through. love my little crunchy mushrooms.
Good.
And the meat is cooked up itself a little bit nicely, but not like too much. Oh, there's some of that beef that was in there. Let me get some of that.
The beef rib.
Is that cooked all the entire time as it simmered?
All day.
That's very good. And it's still pretty clear. I know you say didn't seem very clear, but it's really,
Well,
it's just a little cloudy, but it's
I
really
took
clear.
liberty with the Vietnamese auntie's recipe, but I think mine was delicious. This is my bowl. I've had a couple tastes. It's like nothing I've really ever had. Vietnamese pho, the lime comes through, the basil, it's just delicious. And
I
Duane,
guess
I'm
we're gonna
glad
have
you're
to-
enjoying your first bowl
I
of
guess we're
pho.
gonna have to go to the Pho Horn restaurant and compare.
Okay.
Seriously.
Okay,
Let's do
well,
that.
folks, if you like this recipe, well, maybe if you even like watching us play with this recipe, let us know what you think and subscribe, like, and enjoy if you do make it, because I'm about to have
And
dinner.
I'd like to add a note with Jason Longten. We will go to Pho Horns and try it and compare it to this.
Oh,
So, on
okay.
your recommendation.
Are you going to give Jason some tomorrow?
I wasn't planning on it, but I could.
Very
We
good.
have a lot. So.
This is a shout out to Duane's
one of my friends and
friends.
someone I work with, and
Hey,
he is the one who recommended that we try that place.
well,
so
you know what? I think this one came out pretty good.
I think so.
Bye, everyone. Thank you, friends.